Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us for another MarketBeat Monday. We are so glad that you are spending the day with us. If you've not been here for a MarketBeat Monday before, welcome. We're so glad you're here. Basically, what we do on MarketBeat Monday is we're going to go through some of the big market movers of the day. There are a lot today. Like one of our commenters said, definitely a buying spree for the day to start off the week. And then we're going to take your recommendations straight from the chat. And our MarketBeat analysts, Chris Markoch and Thomas Hughes, are going to be diving into all of the names, kind of a cold look at the names that you recommend and want to talk about today. Guys, thanks so much for being here again. We love having you, and we're excited to get into the market right away. I think the first thing we need to start out with was the India news, Chris and Thomas. Let's talk about kind of how the market reacted to the news that broke just after the lunch hour today. Definitely a lot of green in the market.
It was good news. It's good news for stocks, generally speaking, because it's taking some more uncertainty out of the markets. Reducing tariffs is good for business for lots of people. I know we're going to talk about a few stocks here a little bit that are going to get a benefit from this, but it's just generally good news. Reduces uncertainty, reduces fear, will help reduce the negative volatility. Certainly got people buying. We've seen buying across sectors today. It's been pretty strong, especially in some names.
Yeah,
I think.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bridget. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I've got the heat map pulled up right now, and there is green, but there are some little pockets of red that I think we'll get into as we address kind of what's going on with this heat map today. But Chris, what is your take on the Indian news today, and which sectors are maybe benefiting today from that big tariff trade announcement?
Well, yeah, what I was going to say was piggybacking on what Thomas said. I don't think the U.S. India news made a big difference to the broader market, but the technology sector certainly, because the NASDAQ was down before the announcement, and then the NASDAQ rallied hard to end the day. It's actually NASDAQ's up over 0.5% for the day. So I don't know if it did as much for the Dow, but it certainly, I think, helped the technology stocks. And I think Thomas was actually going to get into that as far as some of the individual names that might have benefited from that news.
Well, I think what the heat map shows us too is that the rally continues to broaden. NVIDIA was down today, I think 2 or 3%, but lots of other stocks were up. The Russell 2000 was up today. It was one of our leaders. So small caps were a leader, but with NVIDIA down, AMD was up, and then some other stocks were up.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about, I think we'll start out with some of the specific stocks that had a jump today, kind of really based on that India news. And one of the big ones first was Walmart. We saw about almost 5% jump in Walmart today. Target, those retailers, let's look at those too.
Well, right, because these guys are moving a lot of their manufacturing production to India. So now with tariffs out of the mix, margins are clearing up. We have earnings strength in the picture now. You certainly see this in Walmart stock price. It advanced 4% today. We set a new all-time high. The rally looks strong and it's gaining momentum. So more good news.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm also just want to pull up because Target hasn't had a boost in a while. It's nice to see this big positive move for them. It looks like they moved even higher. Oh, no, they moved about 3.8%, but up 7.75% in the last 5 days. That's good news for Target stockholders out there. Again, it's been a rough year for Target.
On Target's chart, this move today looks like it's showing support at critical moving averages and a previous resistance point. So this market could be in reversal. It looks pretty good. The retailers report earnings here in a couple of weeks. So perhaps we'll get a good report or enough of a report to keep investor interest peaked, to keep this bottom in play, and maybe we'll see higher prices again.
Yeah, I've got another name that's already popped up in the comments, and trust me, we are watching. Chris, this one's for you. It's the big day for Palantir. Earnings comes out today. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so the report has not been released yet. I'm scanning it as we speak, but Palantir's been down. It's been down about 11% for the week heading into earnings. It needs to come up with a big earnings report. I expect that it will. One of the key numbers that investors are going to want to watch for is going to be whatever that rule of 40 score is for Palantir, because the way Palantir's been hitting that number, and it's been over 100 for the last several earnings reports. And I think it really just shows that there's a lot of momentum to the business, and investors are going to want to see that going forward. But we'll get back to it when Palantir actually reports.
Yes, don't worry. We're going to keep following that one the whole rest of MarketBeat Monday today. We'll be on for about an hour today. Again, if you've not been here before, thanks for joining us for the first time. I see a couple of first-time people have put in some stock recommendations, so we're going to get to those. But yeah, we're going to follow what happens with Palantir's earnings, so stay tuned for that too. Before we get into some of the names you guys have suggested, Thomas, you had some important kind of economic indicators that came out this week. Let's talk about those first.
Well, right there was some manufacturing data. Let me make sure I'm telling you the right piece. It was the ISM manufacturing numbers for today, and for actually the S&P flash data also came out, but both were very strong. ISM was 52.6, S&P flash was 52.4. ISM was about almost 5 points hotter than expected. Really a good number, shows expansion in the manufacturing economy. We usually have expansion in the services economy, so now we've got both parts of our economy expanding. Also aligns with some other recent data that shows strength in this sector of our economy. Just plays into this whole bullish scenario that's unfolding now for 2026.
Yeah, I think it's important to talk about some of those big potential market movers for individual stocks. But now let's get right into the names. There's lots of names coming in. We're going to get to as many as we can here. Let's start out with a couple of the early ones. We had ALMU. Thomas, I think you were looking at that one. Let's talk about what Illuma is. And then Chris, I'm going to have you talk about a little penny stock, just a quick overview on that, ATOM, that somebody had suggested too, one of our first-time viewers. Thanks again for being here. So Thomas, let's do ALMU.
Well, so forgive me if I'm pronouncing this wrong, but Illuma appears to be a competitor, same niche market as Credo Technology, making semiconductor products, connecting data centers using optical high-speed transmission techniques, which is a really big deal for AI because we need to have these high-speed, low-latency data transmission techniques. So potentially very well positioned. The stock chart is kind of sketchy. There is some volatility over the last year, but that said, we're moving in a range and we seem to be supported around the $16 range. As far as earnings go, not making a lot of money right now, not bringing in a lot of revenue, but it looks like they're going to be ramping over the course of the next year or so, which is good news. So certainly it's a promising stock, early in its development. It's going to need to start showing some results to get the market really interested, but I think that it could be a winner over time.
All right, that's a good quick look at that one. Thanks for bringing that new name to us, guys. I appreciate it. It's always fun when we have a new stock to talk about. This is not a new name, but Thomas, I'm going to have you look up ONDS. I got a few people asking about that one, just to see if there's any kind of movement that happened with that stock before. Chris, let's get on to yours. We are talking about this tiny penny stock.
Yeah, and tiny it is, Bridget. This is a stock with a market cap of just $87 million. This is a tiny company. So what investors need to understand here is that there is a bull case for the company, but this is a very high risk, high reward story. And the company is not profitable and it's not generating much revenue, if any, right now. But what the company is doing, their core asset, I should say, is something called Mears Silicon Technology, and it's a materials engineering process that modifies silicone at the atomic level. And the idea for this is that it doesn't require new fabs, it doesn't require any exotic materials. It can plug into existing semiconductor manufacturing flows. So the bull case, again, is that the company is trying to address one of the problems that chip makers are having right now is that they're hitting power, heat, and leakage limits, and so that's something that, and I'm not sure, again, I'm pronouncing the company right, Atomera, that's what they're trying to address. Having said that, again, the stock it's a very tiny stock. It's down a lot over the last year, although it's doing very well this year. It's up 25% for the year. It has earnings coming up February 10th, so that's going to be a week from tomorrow. I would say to investors, you're going to probably want to pay attention to those earnings very closely. It's always tough to time moves in stocks around earnings, and especially when it's a small, tiny stock like this. But it certainly has momentum going into earnings.
All right, very good. I like the question that just came in about thoughts on PayPal before earnings tomorrow. We're going to get to that one, but let's do another smaller one first before I forget about it. One of the early names we had was NSSC, the NAPCO Security Technology. So we'll get to that one, and then we'll do
Yeah.
PayPal after that. Let's talk about ONDS, Thomas. What did you find out was going on with that stock?
Right. So Ondas is a drone manufacturer. They've been gaining traction. They're growing at a hyper pace. The outlook looks pretty robust right now. What I'm seeing in the news flow is that they're transitioning from being more of a like a single drone sales to more of a like a system-wide sales for like a mass number of drones at one time. One thing I like about this technology that I'm learning about is it's designed for beyond the visual line of sight. So you're able to use these drones to go looking at stuff way, way far away, all kinds of applications, defense, military, government, all kinds of industrial applications. Right now, we've got some short interest kind of piled in ahead of the upcoming earnings report, has kind of pressured the stock down lower, but we're still above a critical support line. We're still in an uptrend. So I think that the upcoming report could trigger a rebound. Checking when that's due out. That's due out in 6 weeks. So a couple of weeks to wait probably. But I think it'll be a pretty good report. And analyst trends are saying, all right, they're buying 60% upside. Stock, oh yeah. So this is a good trend. We have analyst coverage is swelling, sentiment's firming. The price targets are trending higher. The consensus is up more than 300% in the last year. You know, more than 50% in the last month. The high end range is looking at, you know, almost over 100% upside. So yeah, this is a robust story. We're just waiting for the results to show some proof to affirm this outlook. Assuming we get that, we should get a pretty strong rebound, and the short interest will help make it pretty even more robust.
Yeah, it's a really good look at ONDS. This is a name that's come up on the channel before. I think it might have made my watch list at some point. If you guys have not seen the watch list before, it's definitely worth checking out. We follow all of the stocks that we talk about here on MarketBeat on my Bridget's Buys watch list. I'm going to pull up that graphic quick so that you guys can see it, just because it's just a great way if you haven't followed it before. We track everything that we talk about on the channel on this watch list. I pick one stock every time we do a video and then follow kind of the progress, and you can see how well some of the stocks we talk about on our MarketBeat YouTube channel and how well they move over time. ONDS is one of those names, and I think Thomas, I feel like this is a decent buying opportunity with where it's at right now, the pullback. Do you think that the pullback is over? I think that's the one question I have whenever we see a pullback like this on a promising stock is, do you think we've hit that bottom yet?
I can't say that it's over. It does look like it could fall down a little bit deeper. But to me, what I'm seeing in the price action is a sell-off that's overextending and being pushed lower. Think of like a rubber band stretching. It's being stretched to the downside too far. So it could go lower, but it's just going to build up even more potential for rebound. The way that the analyst trends are going, we get that positive trigger, a positive catalyst in the next report. We could easily bounce back to the $14 level, blow right past that, move up to the consensus, which is near 17, and then blow past that on the way to 25, which is the high end right now.
All right, very good. Thomas, I'm going to have you look into PayPal. We're going to do that one next. And then I'll pick up some other names. Lots of different names coming in. I love to see all the suggestions. I get to as many as I can. If you really, really want us to cover your name, one sure way to do that is to do a super chat. You can do whatever amount, and that will get it into my attention right away, and I'll make sure to get to that name covered. So that's an idea if you really want us to cover things. Otherwise, I work through the list as the best I can to get us to as many names as we can on MarketBeat Mondays. All right, Chris, let's get to that earlier name that we saw. Again, this is kind of a newer name. I don't think we've talked about NAPCO on the channel before.
We have not. One thing I'm going to say before we do this is I haven't seen the report yet, but Palantir stock is going to the moon in the aftermarket. But getting back to NAPCO, so this is an interesting company. Again, I haven't heard about this company before. They design and manufacture electronic security solutions for both commercial and residential applications. They reported earnings today. They had a double beat. Stock is moving higher as a result. The thing that I've learned about this company just in the brief time I've been looking at this is the bull case coming here, Bridget, is the fact that the company's converting over from just being a supplier of hardware to being recurring. I guess you'd say they're getting annual recurring revenue because they sell cellular services, cloud access controls, alarm monitoring. So they've got a lot of ancillary business that they're actually getting recurring revenue from. And that's what seems to be one of the areas that's driving interest in the stock, as well as the fact that in this last quarter, they reported that demand for some of their locking solutions was also going up. So like what I see here with the stock, it has some very positive analyst sentiment. I haven't seen any new ratings since the earnings report came out, but analysts like the stock. I think they have a price target of about 20% higher than where it's at right now. Yeah, this is one that I did not know much about it, but it's up over 11% today, and
yeah, lots of moves for this name and an interesting name. Again, it's always fun to talk about a new company. It seems like in a good field too.
And it's even got a strong, it's got a really strong balance sheet, and that shows up in the fact that they pay a dividend, and not that the dividend's the right reason to buy the stock, but they've been increasing the dividend now for about 2 years, and it looks like a really safe and solid dividend. Again, the company's got like no debt, they've got significant cash pile, and it looks like they're using that to reward shareholders. So yeah, this is an interesting one to look at.
All right, awesome. Well, let's just while we're here and you're talking about it, Chris, let's get right over to Palantir. This won't show what's happening in the post right now, what's happening in extended trading, but what are you seeing so far?
Well, again, I haven't seen the report released on their website. Believe me, I'm looking for it, but I see that the stock jumped. It closed today at 148.22. It's now up to 159.38 in the aftermarket. So
I've got the press
release. You do?
Oh, wait, I did. It's through a service. Revenue is plus 70%, beat by 60 million. Adjusted EPS 25 cents, beats by 2 cents. Commercial up 137%. Government up 66%. Closed 180 new deals worth $1 million. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Record-setting new contract value,
wow,
up 138%.
U.S. commercial revenue more than doubled from last year.
Remaining deal values up 145%.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's all good news. That's accelerating news.
I'm looking for the Rule of 40 score, and I haven't seen that yet. That was, yeah, no, it's a strong report, which is what a lot of people were expecting, and I think that's certainly why you're seeing the stock move higher.
Well, good news for Palantir. Let me know in the chat, do we have any Palantir investors who've been watching the movement in Palantir? I think some of the questions that we've had is, it's been kind of a downtrend for a while. It's nice to see a boost again for some investors who've been kind of in that reality check of, has this been overpriced? That's been the debate with Palantir for so long, is it overvalued for where it's at? What does this earnings report tell you?
Well, there's always going to be the question of whether or not Palantir is overvalued. I mean, that question's not going to go away, because by the traditional metrics, it is overvalued. But a report like this shows that Palantir continues to grow at a very accelerated pace, and that's what investors need to see to justify paying the premium for the price. And certainly what you're seeing today pretty much erases any downtrend you saw in the last week. And now you'll just see if it just starts making a push past, push back up to that $170, $180 level, and even maybe higher than that. But this report certainly is going to quiet down a lot of the noise that Palantir isn't going to have that accelerating growth, because it certainly is showing that it's having that. It's showing, again, another very strong quarter.
All right, very good. Well, Chris, I'm going to have you look into Soundhound while we talk about I can't even remember which one you were looking at, Thomas.
PayPal.
PayPal, that's right. What's going on with PayPal?
PayPal is one of these stories where it's just like, why is it down so low? It's hard to figure it out, but it's one of those things where it's just like the market's not into it. There's so much competition in fintech and in payments right now. It's just not able to get market attention because I guess people are investing in other names.
Yeah.
But they've been affecting a turnaround. They're growing. They've been outperforming. Margins have been good, and the valuation is ridiculously low. I mean, this is the kind of thing maybe you should just buy some because eventually the market's going to get smart and it's going to bounce right back. But it's trading at 9 times earnings for this year, 5 times 2030 earnings, which to me tells you this stock could, at least double, if not quadruple over the next few years just to be in alignment with the broad market, because that's what it deserves. I mean, it is able to produce growth and cash flow. So there's really no reason for it to be where it is. But to that sentiment trend, the analysts are part of the problem. What I'm showing on MarketBeat website is 42 analysts rated a hold, which it's a good amount of coverage. There's a good conviction in the rating. It's not inspiring anybody to buy. The consensus price target does forecast 40% upside, but the revision trend is very bearish. All the recent revisions have been negative, leading to the $50 range, which is where the stock is trading right now. So it looks like PayPal just is going to be at $50 for a while until something happens for the market to want to start buying it.
To me, I'm hearing in there that there's a potential that we're not at a bottom yet for PayPal, even though, we look at the chart for the stock. It's had a really down year and just keeps going down. But is it possible that this isn't the bottom yet? Could it go even lower?
I mean, it could always go lower, but it's just like, the valuation is ridiculously low. I mean, if it were to go significantly lower, I think that it would trigger buying because people would just do it because of how cheap it was.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, that's one way to look at that. I think there's one other name before we get on to Chris's. I did want to talk about, just because it's related, let's just talk about SoFi. It's a name that comes at the same time because I also think it has kind of a similar chart and a similar story to PayPal. This chart hasn't necessarily been down the whole year, but this one's also been down recently. It's down 25% in the last 3 months. What are your thoughts on SoFi sticking to that same kind of sector?
SoFi is crushing PayPal. I mean, this stock is up hundreds of percent compared to PayPal over the last year or so, driven by its growth and its outlook. This is one of those companies that's taking, market attention away from PayPal. So right now, SoFi's outlook is pretty strong. And that's because I think it's more of a diversified fintech provider. So it can do some of this, payment issues that PayPal is able to do, but it also does so much more.
Yeah, it's more diversified. I think that's a good way to look at this one. It looks like analysts are slightly more bullish on SoFi too. So thanks for taking a quick look at that one and a quick comparison of the two. We had several different viewers who wanted to hear about SoFi as well. All right, Chris, let's get on to the one that you were looking at.
Soundhound.
What's going on with Soundhound?
Well, it's having a rough year. Let's just say that. It's down. It's down 15% for the year. That's pushed it down 40.6% over the last 12 months. Right now, I don't think the market's grasping what the growth story is with Soundhound, and that's their in January, first part of the year, they were at CES. They introduced some new capabilities to its Amelia 7 agentic AI. This is going to expand the company's conversational AI abilities. They're going to have enterprise grade AI agents that are designed for customer service and IT and support, and the agents can reason their way through complex requests. So the idea is this should be inspiring more demand, and that will remain to be seen. The company doesn't report earnings till later in February, but the stock's down a lot. And there was from what I saw, there was I think a golden cross pattern. If not last week, it was the week before that. So it's getting down to that level where I don't know. I look at the stock and I just think it's being oversold right now dramatically.
Right.
Analysts have a moderate buy on it with a $16 price target, so that's up over 90%. But
Yeah.
it's had two negative analyst ratings in the last month. Both Weiss and Zacks gave it a sell. So
this is another market I think that's overextending its sell-off. I mean, there are legitimate concerns about not the debt, but dilution and raising capital in order to fund operations and cash burn. But I think a lot of that's going to be altered this year, maybe with the upcoming report, because there has been such a good deal pipeline expanding its partnerships. So if we get a clearer view towards profitability, we could see money coming back into this one. I think that's what it's going to take.
agreed.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to just point out looking at Soundhound's chart, it looks like their last earnings, they did far better than what analysts were expecting. And I was checking to see if that, they had a better earnings than expected. And I was checking to see if it moved the chart at all in November, and it didn't. I mean, there was a quick little bounce back around that November 3rd timeframe, but not much. And so I don't know. I was just the main question is, would a positive earnings outlook coming up at the end of February potentially change the outlook? But you can see in the past, let's get to the November 3rd timeframe. Yeah, it didn't really do anything. It went down, maybe corrected slightly to the positive, and then just continued this downward path, even though, again, that earnings was better than expected. So is there any hope for a turnaround with Soundhound at earnings?
Better than expected is relative. It was not as bad as expected, is what we should say.
That's
because
true.
Because it still was burning cash, and that's the problem. Right now, too, we've got short interest is 31%. So the shorts have really piled into this market. This is the market that was susceptible to being shorted because of the concerns. Shorts have piled into it. We've been driven down to a very low level. So possibly the next report won't affirm the outlook for profits and will stay low. But soon, this quarter, next quarter, sometime by the end of the year, certainly, the way the deals have been flowing, we should get some affirmation of an improved outlook for profitability. To me, that would be a catalyst for short covering and for this market to rebound.
All right, I'm spending more time on Soundhound than I normally do, but I know we've talked about it so often on this channel. Thomas, you've been bullish on it a lot. If people are watching and they're Soundhound holders right now, what's your advice?
My advice to them?
Yes.
Oh, well, I mean, with Soundhound, it's one of those things you gotta stay the course. The market can see this future unfold and how big it is, and that's why the stock price popped and got as high as it did in 2025 with both of those rallies. But the reality of between now and realizing those big gains is a long time, plenty of time for the market to lose faith, short sellers to step in and cause the volatility that we're seeing now. So just, stay the course. If you think the stock's a good stock, when it's down like this, buy more shares. When it gets to the top of the range, sell some, take some profits, but be prepared for more volatility.
All right, very good. Time to move on. Let's go to UiPath. Thomas, you can look up UiPath. Chris, I'm going to have you let's look up SERV, S-E-R-V. This is a name we've talked about a few different times on the channel too. The robotics stock is interesting.
Sorry, what was that, Bridget, again?
I'll have you look up SERV, the robotics stock, S-E-R-V.
Oh, yep.
And then Thomas, why don't we just get into UiPath right away? This is one that has come up a few different times on MarketBeat Monday, especially.
This is a stock to me that should be doing better than it is. I mean, they have agentic AI, they've got AI automation, they help businesses across workflows. They're growing, they're widening margins. They've got a pretty decent valuation for a growing tech company. They're trading underneath lower than 20 times earnings this year, about 15 times 2028. Certainly some momentum in the industry. I think this stock is a good play. It's just one of those ones where the market just isn't really behind it. And there's just are plenty of other things for them to be interested in. Not that this company doesn't deserve to have the premium. It's just not getting it right now. I certainly see some expectations for some strength. Let's see what the price forecasts are. So we've got 17 analysts. That's a pretty good number. Pegged at a hold. 28% upside. Price targets are basically steady for the last year. So there have been some revisions. They're certainly holding the stock, and there's some optimism, but they're not really overly bullish on it. At the same time, institutions are buying, but not really robustly. Short interest is
It's about 10%. I looked at that just
moderately
a little ago.
high. So right, there's some interest in this stock. Some people think that it should be doing better, but there's not a lot of real conviction in the bullish story right now. Maybe the upcoming report will change that.
Yeah. What is this a buy for you right now where it's at, or is this still a story that's too early to really know?
I think it's buyable, but right now I don't see a catalyst for the move. This is the kind of stock I'd want to see it start making some moves before I were to get into it, because it could easily move to the bottom end of the range and then trend to the top end of the range, but then just still remain range bound.
Yeah. Thomas, take a look at what's happening with Rocket Lab and ASTS, a couple of our favorite names on the show. You can look up those and see if there's any new moves, anything new to mention with those. And Chris, let's get on to your stock. What are you looking at?
You had me looking at Serve Robotics.
That's right.
Yeah. So it's had a tough start to the year. Actually, it started out the year really strongly, and it's given up all those gains back. Looks like the company just completed an acquisition of a company called Diligent Robotics, $29 million deal. And I think that might be part of the reason why the stock is trending lower, is there's just some concern about, what does this do with a company like Serve Robotics that is starting to show growth in revenue, but it still has negative margins. It still has negative operating cash flow, and it's not a profitable company yet. So I think there are some concerns about it. At the same time, in its last earnings report, it said it passed the 1,000 robot milestone, and it plans to have 2,000 robots deployed by the end of this year. So I think you're seeing right now a case of, this is one of those stocks where the growth is starting to happen, but the question is, can it grow fast enough to overcome the fact that it's burning cash right now, and it's got to catch up to that. But
very good. Yeah, this is a name that we've been talking about a few different times on the channel. Anytime we talk about robotics, it comes up because there's a lot of people who are expecting to see some growth here. Analysts seem to be on the same mindset.
Yeah,
it's definitely listed as a buy.
Yeah, analysts like it. They like it. But again, those analyst price targets now are could be 12 months, 18 months down the road. So, the analysts are seeing the growth, but I think what they're going to be looking for is going to be, what does the company say in the earnings report? Does it justify the fact that revenue is growing quickly enough to offset some of that burn? And they don't report, I don't think, until March. So we're going to be waiting a while.
Good. All right, very good. I'm going to have you look at Oracle next. Chris, you can take a look at Oracle. And then Thomas, let's get on to yours.
Right, so this is Rocket Lab and AST Space Mobile. And we can talk about these two together really well, because they're both part of the blossoming industry of space. Space has reached an inflection point this year after years of governmental push to commercialization. The commercial space industry is really growing. Launches, deployments of satellite constellations, which is what both of these companies are involved with, and just expanding use cases, expanding demand, and hopefully we'll see this year the IPO of SpaceX, which is supposed to help unlock a lot of investment dollars into this industry. But with both of these stocks, they're both up more than 100% from their late 2025 lows. So what we're seeing right now is just some profit taking. They're both still above critical support targets. For Rocket Lab, I would say the $70 would be a trigger point for your entry signal. You get to that level or below that level, wait for the buy candle, and then that would be your trigger to buy. With ASTS, I think the $100 level looked like a good trigger. But higher prices are indicated for both with the robust revenue outlook that we have. So right now what I'm seeing is just a regular normal market pullback within a swelling market, setting up a buying opportunity.
All right, very good. Let's do, I think the next one I'd have you do is Datavault, Thomas, just to see if there's any
All right.
kind of an update. I know we talk about it often, but let's get to that one too. And Chris, you are looking at Oracle. Anything new there?
Well, the stock's down. It's been down. It's down 17% for the year. It's now down about 5.6% over 12 months. So here's the question. There's the broader AI infrastructure market is going down. You've seen stocks like Microsoft get hit because of this concern about AI spending. Where I think the concern is a little bit more valid in the case of Oracle is they announced recently that they're going to be looking to raise up about $50 billion in debt through a combination of debt and equity sales to fund their AI infrastructure. And that's really a difference between a company like Oracle and a company like Microsoft, which is paying for their CapEx out of their cash on hand. So stock certainly looks, from a technical standpoint, Oracle looks like it could be a buy, could be an interesting trade there. But in terms of saying, would I be looking at it as a long-term investment? I would have some questions, and I just explained why.
I think it's a great look at Oracle. Thank you for that, Chris. I'm going to have you look at USAR next as well. That's another one that came in.
Okay.
And I know we've talked about that on the channel too, so we'll cover that one. Remind me what you're looking at, Thomas. My memory's not great today.
That's all right. The Datavault.
That's right.
All right. Datavault has some problems. They're an early stage company developing their technology. Like Soundhound, they don't have profits, and that's a big problem for them. Unlike Soundhound, their technology is not all that far along, so they've got some more hurdles to cross in order to become a viable company. They've had some positive news. There's certainly some optimism in the outlook. However, nothing has changed in the market dynamics. We still have short sellers battling against retail investors, and the short sellers, I think, are winning. Short interest rose by 50% in the last report. It's up around 12%. Not super duper high, but with almost no analyst coverage and almost no institutional support, the short sellers have literally nobody to buy the stock that they're selling. So the stock price is just going to keep going lower. I think today it dropped almost 5%. We're nearing recent lows. It looks like we could be retesting the 50-cent level pretty soon. And if we get a move below that, this stock could go back down into the 25-cent range pretty easy, I think.
That is some big moves for this one. And I just, every time we talk about this stock, the volatility is huge on this one. The swings have been wild. I mean, even very, very recently, the start of the year, the start of January, it had a huge one-day jump. Is this all just traders that are moving the stock price so much, or is there any actual moves on what this company is trying to offer to the market?
Well, this is traders. I mean, what happened is they got that boost late last year driven by retail sentiment. There was no support from analysts, no support from institutions, simply being moved by a dream, by an expectation or hope that they would have this business. It seems like a good idea, but they don't have the platform built and they're not really making money with it right now. So it's really, it's a crapshoot. And so within that, the short sellers are piling in and they're driving the stock price down. And without a bullish catalyst, which would be a clearer outlook towards revenue and profitability, I think that the shorts are going to stay in this market and keep it under pressure.
All right, one last question on this one, simply because it was on your stock pick, monthly stock picks a few months ago when it was kind of moving up and you were bullish on the future outlook. Do you still have any hope for a stronger long-term outlook for this stock, or is it questionable at this point?
It's questionable then. It's just as questionable now. I think when I was highlighting it, I tried to say that it was a very speculative play, probably more speculative than most of the stocks that I look at. And since then, we see that in the price action. Like I said, they've had some positive developments, but it's still going to be a long way till they're really a viable company, really capitalizing and commercializing on their idea. And until that happens, I think it's going to be under pressure.
All right, very good. I have a couple people asking about CoreWeave and Bitfarm. So look at those two together. Bitfarm is BITF and then CoreWeave. So you can look up those two, Thomas. And Chris, what are you looking at?
I'm looking at USAR.
Yes. Did you see any moves?
So, yeah. First of all, a quick little Palantir update. Rule of 40 score from last quarter was 127, and that made the average rule of 40 score for the entire year at 106. And keep in mind that every quarter it went up. So it's a backwards average, but it's again, and commercial revenue is like 667 now, and government revenue is like 730. So the gap there is closing too. So it's just a great report. Anyway, back to U.S. rare earths. So the reason why I think a lot of people are very excited about this is the stock jumped today because the Trump administration announced plans to create a $12 billion critical minerals stockpile for American firms to reduce their reliance on Chinese imports. As many investors know, especially those that are involved in USAR stock, the government has a stake in the company. They signed a deal to provide $1.6 billion in funding to the company in exchange for more than 16 million shares of stock and 18 million warrants. So that's probably the reason the stock popped. Well, actually, no, the stock's now down a little bit now towards the end of the day. It's down.
I say, yeah, I didn't see much of it.
Closed about 1.35. So it popped in the open, and I can see that it popped. It popped right away when the market opened, and then it kind of trailed back. So, this is all well and good. Investors need to keep in mind this is a company that's not profitable. They're not even mining yet. There's no operations yet here. But it's a very necessary industry. It's got the backing of the government, so you have a belief that they're going to get to that production phase, but they're a long way away from it. And the stock is over $20 a share. So investors are going to have to hold on to this with conviction if they got in on it early. So.
All right, very good. I'm going to have you look up two again, too. Why don't you look up Resolve AI and Iron? Iron's a popular name, IREN, and then Resolve AI. We talked about it a little bit last week, but I think Resolve would be good to look into again. And thanks for the update on Palantir. It's good to hear. I think we'll be talking about that more this week, I'm sure. All right, so Thomas, you are looking at first Bitfarm?
CoreWeave and Bitfarm.
Okay.
So starting with CoreWeave, it's been struggling for the last 8-10 months, and I would say that's got a lot to do with its massive stock price rise and insider selling. Insiders own I think like 30% of this company, and they've been selling pretty heavily in the second half of last year and still in the first part of this year, kind of aligning with the stock price decline. The flip side of that, however, is analyst and institutional coverage has been increasing and firming. So it looks like the bottom might be pretty solid around the $75 level. The indicators are certainly set up for this stock to produce a bullish swing, which we could get following the next earnings report. Should be a pretty strong one. Demand for GPU as a service is pretty strong. So we're looking for that right now. I think analysts are forecasting 40% at consensus, and then another 35% at the high end of the range. So I think that'd be pretty easy, provided we have a good report. Insider selling is a headwind, but if we get the analysts, institutions behind this, and retail traders also, we can still drive this market higher. Eventually, insiders will have sold what they need to sell to get their portfolio straight, and then the market will have a clear sailing and move higher.
Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about with CoreWeave. What do you take on the analyst ratings? They're kind of all over the place. I know this was a brand new stock that went crazy this year, so it may be hard for analysts to try and put a pinpoint on what kind of a value does this company have. Any thoughts on those recent estimates? It looks like we've got some buy upgrades, moving the price from 100 to 140. Other ones around 100, it seems. So curious to see, how about those outliers, those $200 valuations for CoreWeave that we saw kind of early on as analysts looking at potential price targets for this stock?
Well, it looks like the high end and the low end are starting to kind of contract, and the trend is kind of consolidating around that midpoint. So the 127 looks like a good target. but there is certainly a pretty wide margin of error around that based on the analyst activity, the way you've been describing it.
Yeah, lots of different moves there. Let's talk about Bitfarm too before we get onto the ones that Chris is looking at. Again, different price point for sure, but this one's
Right.
had quite a down few months here.
Yeah, I think this one is just struggling with the fact that it's early in its AI transition. So this is a Bitcoin miner that's transitioning to AI. Certainly good news for the company, good news for the investors, caused the stock price to pop. Since then, we've had a correction, and this is just the market entering that wait and see mode, waiting to see how effectively they're able to make the transition and build their business. I'm not seeing anything, bad in the news stream. Pull this up again. Seems like some optimism. The company has made some divestitures, freed up some capital. It looks like the revenue outlook is pretty tepid right now. So we're not looking for any kind of a major, growth spurt in this company, at least for the next year or so. Right. So it looks like revenue is going to double in 2 years. Not this year, but after they do some of that transition and some construction, revenue should double. That's pretty decent. That should drive the stock price higher over time, but it'll be kind of this wait and see thing happening in the market where as the company progresses with its plans and delivers some positive news, sentiment will firm and the market will drift higher.
All right, a good look and a good transition into IREN, kind of a similar stock, but a different story, I think.
Yeah, it's so this is another data center play. It's another AI infrastructure play. IREN for the first part of this year, IREN seemed to be drifting lower with Bitcoin because, as we've talked about on the channel before, IREN funds a lot of its operations through its Bitcoin reserve because it was a Bitcoin miner exclusively, and it's now pivoted over from that to being in the AI infrastructure play. The stock seems to be stabilizing a little bit, whereas Bitcoin is still under pressure a little bit. So, I don't know if there's any new news that's come out to change the thesis on IREN over what it was maybe a week or so ago with the last time we talked about it. But I think certainly this is a company that investors are going to watch carefully. Analysts still give it about 30% upside from where it's at right now. It does report earnings later this week, so that's going to be a big point for investors as far as getting involved with the stock.
Yeah, I think in the chart, what I see is some eagerness and some optimism for a good report. I think the Applied Digital report that we got a few weeks ago, a month ago, was really good and was a good boost for this entire sector. We see that in the price action. This market looks like it's ready for a good report to be delivered.
Thomas, I think that brings me to a good question, though, with IREN. It looks like it's down over 15% on the last 5 days or so. Why do you think that is? I mean, I'm looking at the chart for Applied Digital. You mentioned it, so I'm pulling that one up too. Kind of the same pullback for that one. That one's been down just over 13% in the last 5 days. Anything that specific that could be behind the pullback on these two names that kind of trade similarly?
Well, I think it's the speed that this market is growing. It's just providing a higher volatility level to the pullbacks. If you think of like the money flowing into this market, like water flowing into a glass, it's being poured in very violently. So the top of the surface of the water is very frothy, and that's what we see in these pullbacks. It's just the market is trying to figure things out. It's swelling really fast, but on the edges and on the fringes, it's very volatile. So we're going to see, price spikes and price pullbacks as news impacts sentiment.
Yeah.
All right, very good look at that. I had one other name that you were looking at, Chris.
Yeah, I was looking at RZLV.
Okay, really quick, Thomas. The last name I'm going to have you look at is 4Us. We mentioned that on a different video on the channel, so look at 4Us. Let's look at Resolve first.
Yeah, Resolve AI. They're developing They're developing AI software for e-commerce. So that's the little, I guess that's the little soundbite about the company. Similar story to what we've been talking about with maybe even a company like Soundhound. So the deal here is the company, again, it's not profitable, it's not generating much revenue, and it just recently did a share repurchase. So there's been some dilution for investors. The question really is going to come down to, again, whether or not is that the last of the offerings that they have to do. Are they going to have to make another offering before they start generating significant revenue to start moving to profitability? There's a risk in the stock. Analysts seem to like it, but this again, it's a high risk, high reward play.
Yeah, the analyst ones are, I think, why we see this name during MarketBeat Monday so often is because analysts seem very bullish on the future. The price targets are a lot higher than where it's at right now. And, for a small company like this to have, it looks like 7 analysts covering it, that's a significant amount on, again, a very tiny company. We have a set target as recently as just 2 weeks ago, the 14th of January, with a price target of $14, and the stock's at $260 right now. So interesting to see such a disconnect between the stock price and where analysts think it could go in just a short amount of time.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is going to come down to what the company says when they report earnings, and I think actually did they report earnings recently?
I don't even have an earnings tab for them, which is interesting.
Yeah, I know. That's so you know what? Actually, I think they report earnings maybe for the first time in April. Or no, they did report in April or something. Let's see. I'm looking to see when they report next. It says April 24th, 2026. I'm seeing that they're going to report earnings, but that. So yeah, we're going to have to wait and see on that one. But
I will point out the short interest on this is over 50% right now. So
yeah, there's some red flags that come with this one. And even for all the positive analyst sentiment, I see that Weiss Ratings just gave them a sell rating on January 22nd. So a lot of red flags on this one. The cash burn concerns me a little bit, especially if they're not done diluting the shareholders like that.
Yeah, I think like you said, if you are wanting a riskier play that has a potential reward, this one's a risky one, but there's also that potential. So some investors are always looking for that. All right, this may be the last stock we talk about. Chris, why don't you give us a quick update on Palantir after Thomas goes on kind of what's been happening in aftermarket with that. Thomas, let's look at the 4 U's. Have you seen any recent moves?
Well, so the stock is down today. It's down the last 2 weeks. We hit a top about 3 weeks ago, so the market's wrestling with some volatility. But again, this is another high growth market that's had a rapidly swelling outlook. So the market has really flooded into this. We had a really robust upswing last year where the stock rose from $4 to $25, pulled back from 25 to 12, bounced from 12 back to 25, and now we're kind of pulling back again. So the question now is if we get support at a higher level, which I think we'll see. We're already starting to see some support in the price action. Not really strong signs, but there is some buying. Despite this pullback, the bulls still appear to be in control of the momentum. So provided we get a good support, indication of support here at a higher level, possibly around $17.50, maybe even as high as $20, I would expect to see subsequently a new higher high also set.
Interesting. Anything specific about this sector that you see as catalysts in the future? Would you group this in? I believe this groups in kind of with USAR or MP in that group.
Well, it's just the advancement of their own production because the company is trying to become more of a integrated, diversified nuclear fuel provider, but also the advancement of nuclear technologies. So we're going to want to start seeing like Oklo and new scale reactors being deployed and other reactors coming online to drive demand for these fuels. All those things together are catalysts that are going to have positive news developments over the coming quarters to help drive the market. It's just a matter of the timing of when they come out.
Very good. Well, there's so many names I just saw that came in that I would love to hit. I'm sorry I can't get to them. I saw somebody notice BJ on my the wholesale stock on my Bridget's Buys watch list. It's an interesting stock. I think we should cover it next time because there's been so much recent volatility and
All
not much of
right.
anything happening with that one.
The retailers will be reporting earnings pretty soon, so that'll be a good week to talk about BJ's.
Yeah, good time to talk about that update. All right. Well, Thomas, Chris, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, we so appreciate you joining us for MarketBeat Mondays. If you aren't a subscriber yet, hit subscribe. We really appreciate the support and for everybody who continues to join us on Mondays. These are always a ton of fun. They always seem to end way too short, even though we try to keep it to between 45 minutes and an hour at most. So thanks again for joining us. We hope you'll join us again next week, everyone. As always, happy investing.